Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Midrash portion of Reunion Road Ramp. This is David Jones, and with me today is Barry Phillips. Shalom, brother.
Shalom to you, David.
Got a quick question for you. Do you ever have those moments when you look up towards the heavens and you speak to Yahweh and you say, I don't get it. Why me?
Well, uh, weekly, if not daily at times.
Like, I just don't understand it. Why are you doing this like this? Um,
I thought it was just me, but maybe someone else too.
that's the encouraging part, though, is that we see throughout the scriptures where many people have had these kinds of experiences. It's part of the human experience. His ways are higher than our ways, but when we are confronted with what he chooses to do, and he says, this is what I want to do, we're like, yes, okay, great, do it. And he says, no, I want you to do it. Then that's kind of the, what? Kind of moment. And I'm thinking this week regarding to Moses.
hmm
Now, when we say Moses having this encounter with Yahweh, of course, we're going to think about Sinai, but I'm like, okay, step back a little bit. Let's talk about the burning bush for a minute. When Yahweh showed up to Moshe, and Moshe was confronted with who Yahweh was, he was also confronted with who he himself was and who Yahweh had said who he is in him. This is who you are, Moshe. This is what I've created you to be. This is what I want you to do. This is your experience that I have for you. This is what I want. And Moshe responded, like many other people who have actually had this encounter with Yahweh, no, I don't want to. I'm reminded of Jeremiah who said kind of the same thing. Jeremiah was like, no, I don't want to. They won't accept it. They won't believe it because it's me. And well, Moshe had the same kind of moment, and I'm looking at his conversation with Yahweh, and I'm seeing five, let's just call it what it is, excuses as to why Moshe should not do what Yahweh had said. It's kind of a bold thing to be able to say when Yahweh wants you to do something that you start making excuses for it. But if we're honest with ourselves, we do the same thing. And I believe that at least one of these areas we can each relate to what Moshe was feeling and seeing and experiencing he himself. And the problem with these excuses is that they were all centered around himself. I am this, or I can't that, or all this, which I'll break it down in a second, but they were all centered around he himself. And I think the answer to this is we need to look outside of ourself and look at what Yahweh says, because his word will stand and he will do what he said he will do. He just wants to use his people to cause it to come forth into the earth. And if he said he's going to do it, then that's where that trust comes in, that if he said it, he's going to do it. Okay.
hmm
So let me go, before we jump a little further in, let me go through these five areas here. The first one we see, and you'll find these in Exodus chapters 3 and 4, and I'm not going to break it down verse by verse or go through it, but if you read through here, you'll see each time Moshe spoke to Yahweh in that, it was one of these excuses. So the first one I'm looking at is identity, and I'm going to paraphrase it. Who am I? Identity. The second one was authority, because it's, well, who are you? Well, I'm going to go. Who do I say sent me? Who are you? The third is faith, saying, well, they won't believe me. And the fourth was ability. He said, I am not a man of words. Some people say he had a speech impediment. I don't know if I subscribe to that or not, really. The point is, he said, literally, I am not a man of words, which I do find, as a side note, funny, because the book of Deuteronomy starts, Ele Hadvarim Moshe, these are the words of Moses. The fifth one is obedience, where he says, please send someone else. Please send anyone else.
hmm
And ultimately, he comes to this terms where he will go. But it took Yahweh getting angry with him to basically shut him down, stop making the excuses, and just do it. you know, uh,
Well, yeah.
And I'm looking at these five different areas. We can really go any direction with these and fill our time with any one of these. But I kind of want to just leave it open and just say, okay, Barry, given this thought process, what's your initial thoughts on that?
Moshe was minding his own business.
And there I was minding my own business when
You know, uh, he didn't ask for this. His initial attempts to do what he was now being called to do was a failure. Um, he's 40 years removed from the crisis. It's somebody else's problem. I tried to help those people and they rejected me, and I stuck my neck out and it almost got cut off for so why now? Who are you and why are you showing up now? But you got to know that Moshe in the inside of the man was unfulfilled. He had an empty void going on there. And not only does nature abhor a vacuum, but your spirit does as well. So when there's an emptiness in there, your spirit is not going to leave you alone until it's resolved. David, as you're describing these issues that he's dealing with, I think in the back of his mind, he knows from the beginning, I'm going to end up back there and I'm going to be doing this, but I'm going to at least give it a shot to try to get my way out of this. There is a large part of him that says, I just don't want to. I don't want to go back. I'm afraid of what will happen. I'm uncertain. All of these negatives that he's dealing with. And it's not like you and I are so far removed from this kind of an experience. Yah is really, really good at interrupting our normality or whatever that is and saying, now this is what you're going to do. I'll give you an example. Laura and I were pastoring our first church, and we are in a little town of about 5,000 people in a city that's stuck in a bowl. There's a mountain range, it would seem, on both sides of us. And we're in this bowl area, and the only thing going on in that town is a paper mill. It stinks. And the people glorify the paper mill because, as they say, that's their bread and butter. And I couldn't get them to understand Yah is your sustenance. He is your supply. And I was frustrated. It was a very oppressive place. We lived in a little house that was less than 700 square feet. It was tiny. And it was damp down in the basement and cold upstairs up on the main floor. We had just found an apartment that was 3,200 square feet. Can you imagine that? 3,200 square feet.
wow.
There was room enough in the living room for my kids to play ball. It was huge. We had 3 bedrooms that were 12 by 24. We had room for the first time. We lived there maybe 60 days, maybe. And I get this phone call from our state overseer. I'm moving you to a coal mine town on the far end of the state, and you're going to be living in a double wide. And I had no choice. All I could do was say, yes, sir. Now, why was I sent there? I still, to this day, have questions about that. But I knew that Yah was doing something. We just celebrated 23 years where we're at right now. 23. I came here for just a few. I'm here for 23 years. Why am I still here, Father? What's going on with all of this? He interrupts normality to push us into a place where we can grow, we can become what it is that he wants us to become. but it's rarely just about us. If Moshe could have seen visibly how far the people had sunk down in the last 40 years from what he remembered, his compassion may have kicked in and said, I'll do anything in the world I can to help those people. But he didn't know. Why am I still here after 23 years? Why did I go to another coal mine town for 2 years? It was for the people. It was for me, but it was for the people. Um, so it's not about us. Once Yah shows up and we can figure out that it's not about us, then the transition can begin a little bit to take place there. That's my initial thoughts.
That is pretty amazing. Um, and it does testify of something because Moshe had good intentions. I mean, the 40 years prior, he had good intentions.
Oh yeah,
He saw his brother oppressed and saw he was being beaten, and he wanted to stop it. And in trying to do so, he killed the Egyptian and buried him, and it was made known. And so here he is now, Yahweh saying, I want you to go free my people. And he said, there's no way. It can't be done. I tried it. And I think when we're faced with that, if we have to realize, okay, he tried it his way. And we have to stop and say, no, we have to see what Yahweh desires for us. Much like when David wanted to bring the ark back to Jerusalem, is that worthy? Absolutely. Is that noble? Yes. Is that the way it should be? Yeah. But he did it the wrong way.
yeah.
And in his zeal to just hurry up and do it and get it done, somebody lost their life. And then he had to go find the Levites and say, hey, how are we supposed to do this again?
David, when Moshe did his initial effort, his own people rejected him. Once you've been rejected, it's hard to find a place where you're willing to be accepted. David's initial effort was rejected, but he had to be contrite and broken and ask, okay, I need help here. The cause is worthy. How do I do this right? Moshe, I think, spent 40 years soured in his spirit over being rejected. I was only trying to help, and they rejected me. So he comes to this burning bush, as we're describing, and it's like, oh, now you show up? Now I'm going to be accepted? And one of the things he said, you mentioned here about faith, they won't believe me. And it's not that the cause was not something unbelievable. I think the emphasis is on that last word, they won't believe me.
We put ourselves in that situation, don't we?
Yeah.
We all get stuck up in the past. We get held up by the way things were. We're stuck in something that used to be. But this is where coming to realize when Yahweh has called you to this point, when you surrender yourself to him, acknowledge, okay, not only is he Yahweh, but he is my Elohim. That's why when Yahweh appeared to him in the bush, which, I believe was Yeshua here, but we won't get into that. But here he says, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, your fathers. And when he says, well, tell the people the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, he has sent me to you. There's an association here between saying, well, I know who he is, but then saying, but he is my Elohim. And when that happens, he changes us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point that we're looking at, is that he changes us, and we're no longer the things that we used to be. We are now something new. And I've got to throw this in here, although we are pretty much out of time. We get caught in that mentality of, well, I'm just the same old sinner saved by grace. And the problem with that is I do believe the saved by grace part. I mean, that's the way it's always been, though. But I'm not the same person I used to be. Because
Not anymore.
when Yahweh calls us and we surrender to him, he says we are to put his word in our hearts, and that changes us.
Yes. Well, indeed, we are out of time. We'd love to hear from you. You can contact us at reunionroadmap@b'nai Yosef, NA David, shalom until next week.
Shalom, brother.